Last night, Black History Month, and it may have been the worst Black History Month ever. There was blackface, it was the N-word, it was a call for the return of the KKK, possible staged hate crimes, and unfortunately much, much more. Let's discuss. Bakari's here, Bakari Sellers, Tara Setmyers, Alice Stewart. Good evening, everyone. Bakari, fix your tie. Who let you on TV
Hi, Don.
like that?
What's wrong with my tie?
Can you center it up? Go the other way. To your
Which way,
left.
right here?
Yeah, there you go. So, Bakari, you know,
Thank you.
at the top of the show, I went through how this could be the worst Black History Month ever. You're the one who said it first, right? At least you were saying what everybody else was saying.
Yeah, I think that we just need to regroup. We need to cancel this Black History Month, postpone it, maybe celebrate from Juneteenth through Beyonce's birthday this summer. Everyone can just kind of regroup and get their center. You know, I think back, I kind of say this in jest, but I think back to the reason why we have Black History Month in February. Carter G. Woodson chose this month. It was Negro History Week, then Negro History Month, because it was the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Right. And we got away from celebrating the very essence of Black excellence every single day. And then you fall into where we're highlighting these racist tropes that happen that seem to pop up. We thought we were beyond this, and it somewhat clouded our ability to celebrate who we are as a people and our contribution to American culture. From blackface, to sexual harassment charges, to more blackface, to Jussie, R. Kelly, you know, the First Lady handing out cotton, people going on cotton picking field trips. I mean, this is, and let's not forget about the Democrat from Maryland who said that she was campaigning down in, I know this is your show, so I'll just say N-word counties. Yeah. So it's just been a mess.
You got Meadows yesterday holding up the woman as a prop. So listen, I got to ask you, just, you know, people always ask me, so Don, what does the white community think? So Alice, what does the Black community think? So Alice, I'm going to ask you, what does the white community think?
I will say this, Don. I recognize where I sit on this panel here, and I applaud Congresswoman McBath, who was just on. She's the Congresswoman from my home district in Georgia, the 6th District of Georgia. She talks about her being one of the many change makers in Congress, which she is, and I applaud that. I'm in Little Rock, right down the street. I talked with folks today who work with the Little Rock 9, the group of 9 students who integrated schools 60 years ago. And these are the people we need to recognize during Black History Month. Bakari has said this for the past several weeks as Black History Month has progressed. Let's have a do-over. Let's spend this month talking about the people that have made a significant contribution to the progress for Black History Month.
You mean for the next Black, because this one, we got to cover the news. Unfortunately, all of these things were big news stories. We started with blackface, then it went to Chicago, and then it was, I mean, so, but I got to get Tara in, because Tara, you saw this yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. This is Mark Meadows bringing in the HUD administrator yesterday during the hearing. This is Lynn Patton, but watch this.
Just to make a note, Mr. Chairman, just because someone has a person of color, a Black person working for them, does not mean they aren't racist. And it is insensitive that some would even say it's the fact that someone would actually use a prop, a Black woman, in this chamber, in this committee, is alone racist in itself. Donald Trump is setting
Mr. Chairman, I ask that her words be taken down.
But I am not calling the gentleman, Mr. Meadows, a racist for doing so. I'm saying that in itself, it is a racist act.
Well, I hope not, Mr. Chairman, because I need to be clear on this particular. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Meadows, wait a minute.
I've defended you with false acts. Mr. Chairman, there's nothing more personal to me than my relationship. My nieces and nephews are people of color. Not many people know that. You know that, Mr. Chairman. And to indicate that I asked someone who is a personal friend of the Trump family, who has worked for him, who knows this particular individual, that she's coming in to be a prop, it's racist to suggest that I asked her to come in here for that reason.
So, Tara, I want you to respond. I just want to say we asked both the congressman and Lynn Patton to come on tonight, but they didn't take us up on it. The congressman said it's racist to say that what he did was racist. Should he have taken a minute to try to understand what Congressman Tlaib was saying?
Absolutely, but you know, the word of the week, and I used it on air last night when we talked about this, is that his response was asinine. Because you're going to sit there and say that the response from women of color who looked at that, and not only the women in the hearing, but just people of color across the country, and you didn't even have to be a person of color to recognize that the Lynn Patton thing was a racial prop and stunt, and it was offensive. But these, you know, this is what I think is going on. I think that there is a certain amount of white America that is just racially ignorant about certain things. There's a certain racial inertia. And in the Republican Party, as a member of it for many years, I've seen this, where white people think that certain stereotypes or certain images that they think that that's what black folks are, and we're going to prove that we're not racist, so we're going to trot out Lynn Patton, or we're going to trot out a diamond in silk. You know, these kinds of stereotypical things that they think that's what black America is, to prove that they don't have these racial biases. It's just ignorance. And this is, you know,
Hey,
what Mark Meadows' reaction to it shows that. He doesn't have any racial consciousness about how that's offensive.
That's not a Republican problem.
No, it's not, actually. You're right. But I'm speaking as a Republican that's lived it.
Yeah, we started out the month talking about Ralph Northam and Mark Herring. We kind of tied up the month referring to the state delegate from Maryland. And I think that it's not a partisan issue. This country has a very large blind spot when it comes to issues of race. And just briefly, I wanted to comment, there aren't too many black people who are quote unquote disappointed in Lynn Patton, because throughout history, I think that Angela Rye has quoted Zora Neale Hurston often. We understand that all skin folk ain't your kinfolk. And so we don't really expect a lot from every single one of us. She will have to look at our ancestors in the face when that time comes and explain to them why she was there. But I'm more concerned about the ignorance that is pervasive even at the highest levels of government.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Michael Cohen's response was that, I'm going to let you respond, Alice, but Michael Cohen's response at that hearing was, I was the one who was responsible for introducing her to maybe the family and the organization, and responsible for getting her hired. She nodded and said, yes, he was. And then he said, there are no black executives at the Trump organization. Right. She, you know, so basically saying she was the prop, or in the administration. Go on.
Don, if I can just say, Congressman Meadows is a very good friend of mine. He was one of the very first people that reached out to me when my father passed away almost a year ago. He is a dear person and a kind soul. And let me just say this. I think this conversation, there is a very welcome place for this conversation, but this congresswoman who accused Congressman Meadows of being racist walked that back a bit this morning, saying what he said, she took it as something that was offensive to her.
She said it was a racist act, that he wasn't necessarily racist.
She said it was a racist act.
That's what she said yesterday.
And I think we can make a very big case for this conversation if we have it in the right context, and saying, this is the way what you said is offensive to me, and while you are not a racist person, your act is perceived as racist to me.
But
and I think, but here's the point.
Is that
and
onus?
I heard exactly.
With that,
one at a time. Let her finish. Let her finish.
Let me just say this. I heard what Tara said last night on this very conversation. I think we can go a lot further with this conversation if we can explain to people, you are not a racist person, but here is what you said is perceived by me, and let's have the conversation from there. But let's not start by saying that you're a racist person.
Please,
right,
quick
that's fair,
response.
but what did I say to you last night when we had that conversation, Alice? I said that whatever advice that Mark Meadows was given was bad, because that is not the way to endear yourself to people of color, because anyone who's not white is going to look at that and say, that's offensive. And that shows the racial inertia that I'm talking about. Maybe he's not a racist, but the fact that he's surrounded by people who thought that was okay, that shows you that there is a dearth of leadership there, and there's a certain insensitivity that we have to address.
Do you want to get in? Because remember, there's a 2012, you're going to send him back to Kenya.
Well, I mean, I don't understand why the onus is always on black people to teach white people about what's racist and what's not.
But you know what James Baldwin said, we're tasked with that, whether we like it or not.
And he also said that to be conscious in America right now and have any state of wokeness is to be in a perpetual state of rage. But my biggest issue right now with this whole conversation is that, look, Mark Meadows, let's agree he's not racist for the purpose of this conversation. The fact is that he trafficked in racism when he had his birther conspiracy moments, and he utilized it as a political currency. And so I don't think it's me or Tara or Don's responsibility to tell him that. I think that it's more so Alice's responsibility to go and pull him aside and say, because it's not always the message per se. Sometimes it's the messenger. And maybe Alice needs to pull him aside and say, I want you to know that on its face, you know, bringing out a black person, having these birther comments on its face is racist, and you have to be willing to acknowledge that and move forward so that we don't have to be drugged down in these moments that drive people crazy.
Alice, I think we are having this conversation the right way, because I said it last night. Just because you do something racist doesn't mean the whole of you is racist.
Right.
You can have a racist act, or you can make a racist comment, or what have you. But then sometimes you're just racist. If there's enough examples of it, the birther thing did not help him. And then, you know, going back to Kenya, that doesn't help him. And sometimes when you do stupid and silly things, many times it shows who you are. I'm not saying he is, but I think that's a conversation I would love to have with him and to have with Lynn.
And don't invalidate people who point it out to you. Don't get defensive. Just listen sometimes, because maybe we know what we're talking about. We live it every day.
Don't call us racist because we're pointing out what you did wrong.
Right. We live it, you don't.
Thank you, guys. Happy Black History Month.
In March.
It's almost over.
Good Lord. Happy birthday, Don.
Thank you. It's tomorrow,
Happy
by the way.
birthday.
It's not today.
At midnight.
All right. Alice, what does the white community think? I always wanted to ask that. People always ask me, what does the black community think? So I got to ask Alice that. And she told me.
I just told you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.